Okay, so really quickly on this one, this is not going to go in your notebook. You're going to turn this in for a grade. This is going to kind of be your check, your exit ticket, see if you understand scatter plots. We're not messing with this part. Answer a complete sentence. What is a scatter plot? Show me, just an example, you don't have to do labels or numbers, but just show me how your scatter plot would look if it was a positive association, a negative association, or no association, and then do a scatter plot of this bottom section and describe the association. Is it positive, negative, or no association? And then that's going to get turned in. This is the next page of your notebook. Linear models. And so you're going to cut on the solid and fold on the dotted. I'm just going to leave mine as a solid piece for now. So we are talking about linear models. Remember, linear means line. So when the data shows positive or negative relationship and falls along a line, there is a linear association. You can use a line to model the relationship between the variables. A trend line is a straight line that comes closest to the points on a scatter plot. We have already talked about that. How to make a prediction from a scatter plot. Draw a trend line. Identify 2 points that the line goes through and use the points to find the slope of the line. So as I'm going step by step, I'm going to come over here and do it. So we don't have the scatter plot or the trend line. What we have are the 2 points. Remember that to find slope, we need to have x1, y1 and x2, y2. And remember your slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is going to give me 12 over 10, which is 6/5. Okay, so that's step 2. Then it says, use the equation y equals mx plus b, substitute the slope found in step 2 for m, pick one of the points and substitute in the x coordinate for x and the y coordinate for y, and then solve for b. And we're going to do that next. So using one of these 2 points, let's just do 10, 2 because it's easier to work with. We're going to say, okay, so if it was y equals mx plus b and y is 2, we're going to put a 2 for y. My slope is 6/5, so that takes m's place, and my x is 10. I don't know my y-intercept. That's what I'm solving for. So 2 equals 6 times 10 is 60. 60 divided by 5 is 12. So 12 plus b, and then solve for b. So my y-intercept would be negative 10. So now I know my slope, and I know my y-intercept. Okay? So then it says, write the linear equation y equals mx plus b, substituting the m and b that are calculated. This is the linear model for the data. Substitute the number being used to make a prediction and solve for the remaining variable, and we'll get to those two in a second. So I want to show you real quick how to rewrite your equation using your slope and your y-intercept. That's all there is to it. You leave the y and the x as variables, and then you substitute it in your slope and your y-intercept. Okay, and so now we are going to solve where x is 25. What is y? Sorry, I'm getting 2 more colors since we're not done. Okay, substitute the number being used to make a prediction. And so if you've run out of space here, you can turn the flap over and you can work on the back. So we know what x is, we don't know what y is. And so we just substitute 25 for x, and we're going to solve that. So 6/5 times 25, I'm going to simplify before I multiply, it's going to give you 30. So now I've got y equals 30 minus 10, or y equals 20. Okay, so when it says solve for the remaining variable, that's what we just did. So y equals 20. My ordered pair would be 25, 20. So if I asked you, let's just say this was about, let's just say this is how far you walked in relation to how many calories you burned. And I know that's not accurate, but let's say you walked for 25 minutes and you burned 20 calories. That's your prediction. Okay? So let's look at the bottom here. Now, nightly sleep in hours and weekly video game time in hours. So we've got 10 nights, 10 hours of sleep means you're not playing video games, you're actually getting sleep. 9 hours of sleep, same thing. 9.5 hours of sleep though, these people reported playing 3 hours of video games. 8 hours of sleep would be 4. 7 hours of sleep would be 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So hard to see. And then 14. And 524. And 616. Okay, so what kind of association do I have here? I have a negative association, right? It's going down. So we want to know, we want to predict, and behind, see how you have a dotted line here? You're going to fold this over. So behind this side is where we're going to do our work. I'm just going to flip my paper over and do it on the back. But we are going to make a prediction about how many hours of video games are played if a student sleeps 8.5 hours a night. Okay, so first thing we need to do is draw our trend line. So you need a ruler. And remember, you're trying to split this data relatively evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, how about if we do like that? Okay, so that is my trend line if you'll look. Very important for you to understand. Those 2 points that you're choosing are not 2 data points. They are not from this information. Your 2 points that you're choosing are 2 points that fall on your trend line. So when I look at the trend line that I drew, my points may not be the same as your points. Now, my trend line did go through this data point, which was the 524. And that's just kind of lucky on my part that that happened, but that's not always going to be the case. Another place that my trend line crosses, let's see, looks like right here. And so that would be, hold on, my old people eyes can't see that. 712. Okay, so I've got 524 and 712. You need to pick 2 points that are on your trend line, because if yours is not exactly like mine, then your points will not be exactly like mine. Okay, so 524 and 712. Okay, remember step 1 was find the slope. Okay, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I have negative 12 over positive 2, which is negative 6. Okay, then I'm going to take my equation, and I'm going to choose 712. So 12 equals negative 6 times 7 plus b. Sorry, can't see that. Here's my y, here's my x, here's my m. Y equals mx plus b. Y is 12, m is negative 6, x is 7. I don't know b yet. So 12 is equal to negative 42 plus b. Add 42 to both sides, and my y-intercept would be at 54. Now obviously my graph does not go up to 54, so I can't prove that, but I can see that I've not crossed the y-intercept yet, and if I continue up, it's going to be pretty far up here that it crosses, and so that does make sense with the data. Okay, and then remember, you are rewriting your equation now with your slope and your y-intercept, but leaving your x and y as variables. So y equals negative 6x plus 54. Now, do you remember our prediction? How many hours of video games would he play if he slept for 8.5 hours a night? And so the 8.5 is getting plugged in for what? Which one was numbers hours of sleep? That was my x. So it's getting plugged in for my x. Okay, so 8.5 times 6. 51, and it's a negative 51. Negative 51 plus 54 is going to give me a positive 3. We can check that. We can come back over here, and where we have 8.5 hours of sleep, we should fall on that trend line at, what did we say? At 3. So here's 3, here's 8.5. And we are slightly off, but that's probably more than anything because of my ruler drawing. That is a really good prediction if we are just slightly off. So the question says, you know, how many hours of video games are played with somebody that gets 8.5 hours of sleep? Based on my trend line, the answer is 3. Again, your trend line may be slightly different. So this is going to go on the left-hand side of your notebook.